Okay, something you need to know. Business American Express cards do not report to your personal credit and have no bearing. So do not ever purchase an authorized user slot on a business card because it will do nothing for you. Okay. Also, American Express credit cards most often do not report history. Okay. That's why a lot of my trade lines that I sell are not American Express for this purpose, because when it comes to trade lines, unless you need to add a higher limit or offset some debt, the Amex card is not going to really have a huge bearing because it doesn't report history. And when you're adding trade lines, the most impact a trade line can give is history. Okay. That's why a lot of times when I see people buy, trade lines that are like 2 to 4 years old, they're like, oh, I only got like 30 points. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you only got 2 years, 4 years of history. If you're a 40-year-old person or a 30-year-old person, credit could have started at 18 or 21. So you got a lot of years to make it up for there. Now, if you're 22, sure, a 2-year trade line will be perfectly fine. But, you have to consider how old you are. Okay, that's another thing. And when I first started building up my credit, I had to add trade lines in different spurts. And I've added trade lines probably 5 or 6 different times over the different years. And some of the times they've been people that card holders that I work with. A lot of those pin fed cards that you guys see on my trade lines list, I've had those on my credit report. Those are some of my go-tos because they're high limits. And I've had a lot of those other high limit trade lines on my credit report too. And I've also, that's kind of how I test my trade lines with some of my cardholders. I'll say, hey, add me, I'll pay them a discounted rate or whatever. They'll add me on and they'll just keep me on for like 6 months or something. And that way I can make sure that the trade line is good. But, we'll talk about more about trade lines during that presentation because trade lines, there's a lot to it, even though it's a simple thing that helps, there's a lot to it. And, definitely trade lines are not for everybody. And you have to understand which trade lines are going to be best for your clients. And sometimes people have a hard time understanding that. I think I've already covered this, but yeah, reality check, some things don't go away, right? So what do we do when some things just don't go away? My quickest answer to you would be to settle your debt, right? If you know it's not going to go away, like in the scenario where that gentleman was like, hey, I've been paying for credit repair for a year with this company and nothing's happened. Well, again, he had like 2 Navy Federal credit cards and like I think it was American Express. So yeah, it's not going to go away, sir. You should just settle the debt, and then you're gonna turn those into a positive if you're on a payment plan. But he could have saved all of that money that he spent on credit repair because it didn't do anything for him. Instead, you can offer people coaching and kind of guidance on how to repair their credit, not necessarily like, hey, I'm going to repair your credit for you as a credit repair company, but hey, let me walk you through what you need to do. And sometimes that might be debt settlement. Debt settlement is part of a service that you can provide to your clients, and it is something that's very real when it comes to credit repair that not a lot of people talk about, because everyone online likes to think or likes to just talk about the glitz and the glam of it all. And nobody really talks about like, hey, what do I do when all this stuff doesn't work? And I've gone through the verification, I've gone through the method of verification, I've gone through an attorney, and it's still valid. And well, you got to pony up and pay it because, again, some things don't go away. You can take as long as you want with some things. And sometimes people are stubborn, like myself, and say, hey, I'm not going to pay it. We can go toe to toe. And I got all day. That's fine. But if you're like, hey, I want to buy a house, I don't have time for all that, then you got to pony up and pay because you're not going to get that house with all the negative stuff on there. We got to clear that up. You're not going to get the funding with all that negative stuff on there. We got to pay that up. So we have to get a good plan of, hey, what's going to be the best scenario for this person based on their goals? Because one of the first questions that I ask everyone that I talk to is, all right, where are you at? What you done? And what are you trying to do? Right? What are your goals? Right? What are your goals when it comes to your credit? Right? And I like to hear, what are we planning to do within the next year? Okay, what's on the plan? What's on the agenda? Right? If I hear anything about an auto, the first thing that I ask them is, hey, are you going to buy a house? If the answer is yes, we got to put that auto on the back burner, because you cannot, and I repeat, if you don't remember shit else about tonight, remember this. One of the biggest ways that you can shoot yourself in the foot and not be able to qualify for a mortgage is to add too many auto loans to your personal credit, which kills your debt to income. Okay. Take it from somebody who did Turo. Okay. I know. All right. And you don't want to be in that situation. You want to be able to purchase assets in your personal name, so you have some collateral so you can get more on the business side. You want to hold those auto loans on the business side so they don't report to the personal credit. Okay. Because that DTI, if you get, like I did, I got that Mercedes, even though it's in my business name, it still reports to my personal credit, so thank God I'm like halfway done paying it. But man, it was hell, and you also have to provide financial records. It has to come out of the business bank account. So if you have a business auto loan, you need to make sure that that business auto loan is being paid by a business bank account. Okay. If you have a personal auto loan and you tell the mortgage company, hey, I run a business, but I had to get this in my personal name, but my business pays for it. You need to be able to show that that auto is being paid from your business bank account. So get your affairs set up right. Okay. Make sure everything is structured, because you don't want autos holding you back from qualifying to buy a home. And those auto loans, they'll be the first ones to do it. Okay. So just, think before, and always tell people, if your goal is to buy a home, we want to get the auto after we have somewhere to park it. Okay. Comparable credit. This is super important. Okay. If you don't have comparable credit, the banks are not going to feel comfortable lending to you. I'm just going to be honest. So what do we have to do? We have to create our own comparable credit. How do we do that? With pledge loans, which are secured loans, with secured credit cards. Of course, secured credit cards are not my favorite. I would prefer a pledge loan that is still in our bank account that we can eventually close, and we still have access to the money, versus like a secured credit card. The only time that we're going to get it back is if we close the account, or if the secured card ever graduates, which in some cases they do, and in some cases they don't. Discover it. They're going to graduate in about 7 months.